Test, 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 test. Switch to the main scene. Not sure if that's gonna work. All right, nice, it works. Welcome to my stream. This is the Thick Chocobo channel, or it can be pronounced as a Thick Chocobo, however you want it. So in this stream, we're going to be learning a bit about Shibari. So I Google searched some places where I can learn about Shibari, and I found this website which offers a couple free lessons, and I think this is a good place to start because it looks like yeah, these are the first courses that I want to take before getting into the actual content. And you know, it's stuff that I think is important before you engage in actual real play. So let's go over this together. And yeah. Oh, and I guess this, you guys might be wondering, why is there a cup of instant noodle or Maruchan instant lunch on my desk? I'm actually testing out the camera setup right now, so yeah. So excuse that, but yeah.
I would like to give you an introduction about all relevant safety aspects you should know about before starting with rope bondage. The contents of the course will be about rope materials, cutting tools, self-reflection, general safety advices, concrete anatomical safety advices, personal risk profile and how to communicate it, consent and communication, pain and pain processing strategies, and psychological aspects in TRE. Rope bondage can come along with a huge variety of potential risks and damages, and therefore we consider it to be a RAC activity, which means risk-aware consensual kink. To enable you to make safe and satisfying experiences with rope bondage, consensual kink. To enable you to, and therefore we consider it to be a...
Okay, this is a new term for me, and I'm gonna write down R-A-C-K. Activity. What does this mean? This
RAC activity, which means
that it is a risk. Actually, let me just risk aware, consensual kink.
Risk-aware consensual kink. To enable you to make safe and satisfying experiences with rope bondage, we want to empower you with this course to know, assess, and control all potential risks. Only by full consciousness you are able to act and play consensual. So enjoy this course and have fun.
I just realized that there's an about me here, and I think it's going to share the same about me for all the videos, so why don't I just read through this right now. So in this free course, ASEA gives you a general overview of the most relevant safety aspects you should think of and know about before starting with rope bondage. This includes information about different types of ropes, cutting tools, anatomical knowledge, especially about the nerves, and nerve damage symptoms, but also consent and communication, self-reflection, psychological aspects, and pain processing strategies. Although this course aims to be as exact as possible, you might find varying viewpoints and information when doing your own research. This course does not aim to provide definite answers or absolute truths about the topics covered, but rather to guide you and encourage you to consider and investigate further on all these important safety topics. With this course, we wish to help you better understand, evaluate, and navigate the potential risks associated to rope bondage in order for you to enjoy safer and more satisfying experiences in or with ropes. Okay, let's continue to view the videos. Actually, let me make a new section or page. Actually, in this page, we're going to title it Rope Material. Oops.
One of the most asked questions when you start with rope bondage is which rope material is the most suitable for you. We can divide the rope materials into natural and synthetic fibers. So we have jute rope on the side of the natural fibers. Jute rope is having a twisted structure, as you can see here. And the twisted structure creates a great knot stability. It is very water sensitive, so it should not get washed too often if you want to make sure you won't lose.
All right, I'm gonna try to start jotting this table down. So, how do we insert a table? There we go. So, over here we have natural. And on this side we have synthetic. Jute. Wonder if I can like pop this out. Nope, I don't wanna do that. I wanna like maximize it, but not maximize it like so that it takes all my space. How do I do this? I will take a screenshot here, and I'll unmaximize it, paste it here, and write down this information. Twisted, and I guess this plus denotation means that it's a positive thing about jute material based or rope that is made out of jute. Good knot stability. Oops. It is. Why does it? Oh, it hyphenates, or it what do you call it? It adds a tab because it thinks I'm trying to start a list. But what if I'm not trying to start a list? How about double negatives? All right, cool. Water sensitive. Another plus. Creaking sound is positive. I didn't know that, but let's see what she says. Damn it.
Any carrying capacity, you shouldn't wash it even once. The second row on the side of...
Okay. Now I need the single dash. Do not wash even once. Damn it. I keep on thinking space is used to restart the video, just as it is in YouTube, but this is not YouTube. And yeah.
The natural fibers is hemp rope. Hemp rope also has a twisted structure and therefore all...
Okay, let me copy this down, X out of here, delete this, I no longer need it, this, So we have hemp, which is also twisted. I didn't catch why being twisted is a something that is considered positive. So hopefully she is able to explain that again. The positive is good knot stability, so same with jute. Medium water sensitivity. Okay. Unique smell. Oh, okay. So, damn it.
Also very good knot stability. It appears a little more grayish in color. Jute rope appears more golden. The third rope on the side of the natural fibers is cotton rope. In contrast to jute and hemp rope, the cotton rope has a plated structure. The plated structure will expand on a tangent, and therefore the cotton rope is not very
Alright, once again, we're gonna take some screenshots, and oh, you know what? I just realized that the structure that's holding the her sign up is made of rope. That is actually pretty clever. Anyhow, it's kind of funny. Alright, cotton. It's plated. I didn't catch why that's important. Expands under tension. So I can kind of imagine why this is useful, because it makes whoever you're tying up feel a bit more comfortable, because I felt hemp before and I don't think it will expand that easily, so it must be really uncomfortable to be tied up in hemp. It doesn't say anything about like how it expands with jute, so I'm not sure how that is, but you know, let's, damn it, plus knot stability, washable, and soft touch.
suitable for suspension because it will expand, and then the knots will get compressed and it will be hard to untie the knots. A huge advantage of cotton rope is that it is washable very often without a noteworthy loss of carrying capacity. And it is very soft in touch, so it is really, really good to use for sex bondage or decorative bondage, but not suitable for suspension. At the side of the synthetic fibers, we have polypropylene ropes first. They may appear like hemp rope, but actually they are plastic, and you can see that at the ends of the rope where they are melted. So this plastic rope is not very suitable for rope bondage.
Okay, good enough. Let me zoom in, copy that, paste it over here. Or actually, I should have pasted it closer up there. So here we have polypropylene. Alright. How did I? Is it shift? No, come on. There we go. Okay. So risk of rope burn. So it's not. That's probably why it's not suitable. Medium knot stability. Stiff. At least it's washable. And at least it's very stable. Okay. Damn it.
Because it is very stiff, and it can easily create rope burn on your partner's skin when you pull it too fast over the skin. So you shouldn't use it for rope bondage, you shouldn't use it for suspension, but it can be a good option for water bondage because it is not damageable by water. And
oh, okay. Let me actually write this down. Only good. Probably good for. Probably only good for water bondage. I think I'm not gonna get to that anytime soon. So cool.
You can wash it as often as you want. Nylon rope also has a plated structure.
Okay, let's grab this right here. Move this, paste this here, move this here, and we have nylon. The risk of rope burn, just like the last one, expands under tension. At least it's soft and it's washable. Damn it.
And therefore it has the same disadvantages than cotton rope. It expands under tension and is not suitable for suspensions because the knots will get compressed and it will be hard to untie. Also, it easily creates rope burn because it's a synthetic fiber, but it's washable as often as you want without the noteworthy loss of carrying capacity, and it's very soft in touch. If you strive for shibari or even for suspension, you should choose between jute or hemp. There aren't major differences.
Okay, make note of that. If you're getting into suspension, Shibari, then look into jute or hemp types of rope.
Differences in case of usability between jute and hemp, but you should choose for your personal preferences. They differ in color and weight and smell, and it's in the end just personal preference.
Okay, 1 second while I try to figure out the heck is going on here. Okay, I think I'm good.
If you want to do floor bondage or sex bondage, you can also choose cotton rope or nylon rope, but please be careful if you use nylon rope for rope burn. The standard length of a rope is about 8 meters. That is a good compromise.
Okay, that's a good note. Standard rope length is about 8 meters.
To have enough rope to already start a tie, but not too much to be focused only on pulling the rope. Most people will individualize the length of the rope to their partners after time. The standard diameter of the rope is about 5 or 6 millimeters. That's thick enough to carry.
Okay. Standard diameter is either 5 millimeters or 6 millimeters.
Carry a body and thin enough to make stable and flat knots. If you're a bigger body, we do not recommend to use thicker rope because your knots will come out bulky and will make pressure marks. So if you're a bigger body, you can use more wraps, but do not use thicker ropes. If your rope starts to fray or being unequally twisted, you should sort it out and do not use it anymore. Especially not for suspension, because it's not safe and its carrying capacity has been decreased. This is a very good example for an old rope. There are a lot of frays and it is quite unequally. This would be a rope you can use for sex bondage or floor bondage, but definitely not for suspension anymore.
Cool, good to know. Okay, we are on the section of cutting tools, but before we get to that, I'm going to take a short break. Probably get some liquids in me, and I gotta dump out this the rest of this instant noodle. So I'm gonna test out my BRB scene now, and hopefully it works. If it does, oh, it probably doesn't work because I changed a couple things. I should have worked on this before starting my stream. Let's see if I can actually fix it live. So this is what it used to be before. And what I don't want to do is I don't want to change how it transitions, so I'll delete that. And actually, it looks like I adjusted this already, so this should work. Let me minimize that, And let's see. Sweet, I think it works. But does it mute my microphone? No, it does not. My microphone is still on, so I probably have to add an additional step to that procedure and have a step where it will mute my microphone. Alright, BRB for a couple of minutes. Alright, and we're back. Or I'm back. Nice. Okay, sweet. Let us create another page. Actually, I should start trying to practice adding markers so that I can label each section. Okay, there we go. Alright, we are on the video on coding tools. Okay.
Most important question that always came up is about cutting tools. You should have a cutting tool from the very first bondage scene you are doing, but you should not only have it in your bag, you should have it ready to handy.
Have cutting ready and within hands reach. Damn it.
It might sound trivial for you to train how to use a cutting tool, but when you are in an emergency situation, you might get panic and tunnel vision, and things you're doing confident in your daily life might get complicated in that situation. So train
changing the quality because I have the internet for it, but maybe the site does not have the bandwidth for it, because I'm on a gigabit internet, so I should have no problem taking in 1080p, which I don't know why it's labeled as UHD. I would think UHD would be at least 1440p, but hey, I guess the site does not want to give away their 1080p
cutting tool. A knife like that without a hidden blade can easily harm your partner because you can accidentally cut into someone's flesh. So knives like that aren't suitable to use.
Do not use knives. They are open blade. High potential to harm person. And I can't see that, so I gotta maximize it. Mostly very sharp. Mostly very sharp. Okay.
As cutting tools. Medical scissors are safe to use as cutting tools because they have a rounded edge. You can see the rounded edge here, and they also have a hidden blade because of that rounded edge. But the blade is slippery and won't cut rope easily. So
okay, let me just start by jotting these notes down. So positives, rounded edge. There's a hidden blade. Oops. Unfortunately, they are slippery. And what else? And lastly, we'll get stumped fast. Okay.
this might be an option to cut your rope, but after you've used it once, it will get stumped and you will have changed the cutting tool. Another option as a cutting tool is a textile scissor. A textile scissor also have a rounded edge, so it will be safe to use on someone's body, and the blade is jagged, so it is more easily to cut into the ropes. A textile scissor is only available with a short leverage, so it will be a little bit more complicated to cut because the force won't be transported as good as with a longer leverage, but as you can see, the blade is jagged and you will have a very good grip when cutting a rope. You can use it 1 up to 3 times, then it will get stumped too and you will have to buy another one. Rescue and belt cutters also are a very good option as a cutting tool because they also have a rounded edge and they are sharp like razor blades. As you can see, there are different versions of rescue cutters and belt cutters. They are both suitable to use as a cutting.
Alright, so what does it say? Gut. I can't read that small. Gut hook or rescue cutter or belt cutter. Alright, so many names. Gut hook, rescue cutter, or belt cutter. Okay, and these also have a rounded edge. These have a hidden blade. Has good grip. And there's no positives. So this is probably the way to go if I need to pick up my first pair of cutting tools. Very sharp. And because she lists very sharp and not anything about how fast it gets. stump, it's probably the best out of all these, because you don't want to continually buy medical scissors or textile scissors, and you don't want to use knives because they're the most dangerous. So this seems to be the best solution.
Tool. And the good thing about using that tool is that you don't have to change the whole tool after using it once. You can only change the blade and keep the tool. So this is very suitable to use as a cutting tool for rope. If you have chosen a cutting tool, you should try it out at home, which means if you choose to use a scissor as a cutting tool, you should buy 3 or 5 one, because after trying it out, you will need to have a new one for your bondage scene. And when you have used it once, it will be stump and you will need a new one. So buy more than one, and if you decide to use a rescue or belt cutter, buy new blades to change them after you used it.
Oops. Okay, so basically don't do that. And now we have medical scissors. Yeah, that seems a lot safer. No one's going to get poked. Sweet. Then we have a belt cutter. And I suppose there's no example with textile scissor because they kind of look similar to medical scissors. Awesome. What are we on now? We are on the section of self-reflection. Okay, so let me create another page. Self-reflection. Okay. Can I try 1080p again? Or is it just gonna get stuck loading? I'm gonna try to refresh it. Okay, if I refresh the page, then it could show 1080p. Awesome. Maybe I don't have to zoom in as often anymore.
Every person has different intentions why they want to do rope bondage. To help you to find a rope partner and tying style that fits to your intentions, it can be helpful to reflect about your intentions. So I want to give you some questions to reflect on for yourself or together with an existing partner. First question is, what arouses your interest in rope bondage? Second question is, what...
How about a table? How about a table? Or maybe not a table. I could have sworn I smelled something that's kind of burnt, but it just might be my video card that's heating up from doing all this OBS work. Okay, so maybe not table. I don't think it's necessary. Let's just do lists. What arouses your interest? Yeah, something's heating up. Alright, let me switch to my BRB scene again and try to figure out what the heck is that smell. Alright, I wasn't able to identify the smell, but I did open my window, so hopefully that that fixes what I think is or the source of the smell, which probably is my video card. So now that there's a bit of cold air coming in, it should make it a little bit better. Okay.
Bondage pictures and videos inspire you.
What bondage? What?
And why?
Pics and videos. And videos inspire you. You know what? Why don't I answer these as we go along? So, what arouses my interest on bondage? It's something that I have not looked into before. It looks kind of fun. It's something that seems like it would take time and effort into looks kind of, well, how about this? It's kind of fun. It's visual, well, the rope knotting and tying. How do I spell tie? Oh, I forget. The rope knotting and tying seems visually stimulating to me. Not so much the person, but sometimes from the pics I have seen, I'm more interested in how they make all those weird, well, I call them weird for now, but later I'll probably use a different term. How they, I don't know, make it visually pleasing. Like, there's a mastery to this. It's a work of art, right? And I think the more intricate you can get with how you tie a rope, the more it is less about the sexual side of things and more about the craft itself, right? So that is that to me, and I should have wrote all that down, but I didn't, and now I forgot it. All right, so next question is, what bondage pics and videos inspire you? Not anything I remember in particular, but I've looked into random videos from searches on the topic, and I've also I also have a book that my friend gave me on the topic that does have a lot of pics. Alright, so moving on.
What do you desire to feel or to experience?
Okay. What do you desire to feel or to experience? For me, it's definitely not the feeling of getting tied up. I want to be doing the tying. I don't want to be the person that's getting hogtied. Want to learn how to creatively tie different knots.
Experience while you are tied or while you are tying. What do you need to trust someone in rope?
What do you need to trust someone in ropes? Actually, I'm gonna let her go on a little bit. Damn it.
Is bondage linked to BDSM or are they separated?
Oh, she doesn't even explain what this means. Okay, so what do you need to trust someone in ropes? I would need to know they have experience, either in some form of study, like I am right now. They can show me a video of them studying the safeties of Shibari, which would boost my confidence in someone. And the more confidence I have in someone, that's how I build trust with them. Or they could have someone vouch for them. I think that person would also be someone who I need to be able to trust as well. It can't be some random person. So knowing that I don't know anyone aside from my friend who introduced me to the topic of Shibari, yeah, I don't think that method would work for me, because I wouldn't know any other person who could vouch. Let's see, what else? Or if there's someone that could vouch, or someone who we mutually could vouch. There's someone I trust, who we know mutually, who could vouch for said person. Okay, I think I need to move on. Bondage equals BDSM. So isn't the B in BDSM, doesn't that stand for bondage? Damn it.
Categories for you. Is bondage sexually intimate?
Bondage equals sexually intimate. What does sexual mean for you? These questions isn't that what the B in BDSM stand for? Is my answer. I don't know. Is bondage sexually intimate? Does it have to be? I question if it's an absolute, or is there some gray area here? Let me go back here. Yeah. Currently, it doesn't mean so much to me. Okay, moving on.
And if yes, what does sexual intimacy mean for you? Is bondage emotionally intimate? And again, what does that mean for you personally? Is bondage a sportic activity for you?
Is bondage a sporty activity for you?
Can you imagine getting tight in front of an audience or in public?
Can you imagine tying or getting tied in front of an audience? Damn it.
Public, or do you want to do it only in private? Do you have any
Actually, this is a two-part question. Or would you prefer to have it done in private? Okay, moving on. Do you have any personal insecurities?
personal insecurities, like thinking you're too fat or too thin, too unexperienced, knowing not enough technique? Do yourself a favor and communicate these insecurities with your partner in advance. Can you imagine feeling...
So I'm gonna finish this video and then go back and answer each one of these myself, instead of, constantly doing a stop and go at this. Can you imagine feeling the following: helpless, pain, discomfort, actually let me fix this, feeling the following while being tied. Okay.
helpless, uncomfortable, or in pain while being tied? And how do you feel if you think about being in pain or in an uncomfortable situation while being tied? The better you know about your intentions and what you're...
How do you feel? Okay, I mean, can you imagine the feeling? Well, this is a two-part. Let me... that's a good way to do this, because the follow-up question is tied into this question, the second to the last as well. Following. And how would you and how do we mitigate these or lessen these feelings? Okay, so going back to, is bondage a sporting activity for you? What is considered sporty? I mean, it is two people working together, and it does involve physical movement, right? You might have to bend in certain ways that you normally don't, which requires you to exert some energy and some muscles that you normally don't, and I think that's considered sporty. Yes. Unless you're doing the same thing over and over like 100 times, and suddenly it no longer exerts any energy. Just like walking, right? If I'm walking, I would not consider that like sporting, but to someone who has been in rehab for being in a wheelchair for a very long time, walking might raise their heartbeat, and it might be considered a sporting activity to them, depending on age, and there's many factors to it. So for me, I would consider, yes, I would consider rope play or bondage a sort of sporting activity. Can you imagine tying or getting tied in front of an audience, or would you prefer to have it done in private? For me right now, it has to be in private because I guess I'm an introvert, and I want to do it on my own first, absorb what I'm learning, get experience, be comfortable enough to present it, as opposed to just going out there and doing things on the fly. I would prefer to start in private to gain experience, to be able to do it comfortably in public, or with an audience. Do you have any personal insecurities? For myself, if I was getting tied, not really. But I can imagine the person who I am tying might have insecurities, so it would be important to discuss any that would be important for them to have me know before engaging in the process of tying or doing any sort of bondage play. All right, so we have the last question. Can you imagine feeling the following while being tied, and how do we lessen these feelings? Helpless? Yeah, I can imagine being tied up and being super uncomfortable and being unable to control your own comfort. Therefore, that could make me feel helpless and could make someone else feel helpless. Pain? Yeah, of course. I mean, if I think I have, when you tie a rope around, or I have a good example. So if you put on a ring that is a bit too tight, it's gonna start hurting after some time, and that could be the sort of pain that I imagine. Like losing blood circulation to a part of your body because that limb is just tied up so with so much tension. Lastly, we have discomfort. Yeah, so any sort of high tension knots that are performed could create discomfort. The material of the rope could create some discomfort. So yeah, I can definitely imagine that, and these are things that should be addressed before starting any sort of role play with a real partner.
You're seeking for in rope bondage, the easier it will be to find a rope partner and tying style that fits to your intentions and preferences, and it will be easier to make fulfilling experiences in rope bondage.
Alright, what video are we on now? General Safety Guide. Alright, new page. General Safety Guide. Or Safety Advice.
I want to give you some kind of general safety advice list. You should all
Actually, let me copy this down. I remember there being a way to insert a checkbox list. Oh, here it is. I think. Nice. Okay. Check rope equipment. Check suspension point. Every time. Let's emphasize that. Have you slept enough? Ate and drank enough? Do you feel well eaten? Do you feel emotionally, physically ready to tie? Getting tied. Or getting tied. Consumed any drugs? Taken any medication? Oh, okay. These are exclamation marks, while these are, have you discussed limits and expectations? Are you informed about potential risk? Are there any pre-existing diseases to be that either party, or because it could be more than two, any party should be aware about?
Always check before every time you tie with a person. If you want to tie with someone for the very first time, please inform yourself about the person before starting to tie. You can read their internet profile, you can ask friends, you can ask at your local community, and please do not get dazzled by fame, representative pictures, or names. There are a few things you should always consider before starting a rope scene with someone. The general safety checklist contains the following points. Check your rope equipment every time you use it. Check suspension point also every time you want to use it. Have you slept enough? Have you ate and drank enough? That questions might sound trivial for you, but it's important to ask them. Do you feel emotionally and physically ready to tie and getting tied? That is also maybe a trivial question for you, but some days you feel better to get tied and some days you are not feeling so good. And it's important to communicate that in advance with your partner. Another question is, have you consumed any drugs? You shouldn't do rope bondage if you are under the influence of any drugs. Have you took any medication? Have you discussed your limits and expectations? And are you informed about the potential risks? I will talk about that in detail in the sections Creating and Communicating a Risk Profile and the section Consent and Communication. The last point on that checklist is, have you communicated about pre-existing diseases? Especially asthma, diabetes, and epilepsy are diseases you should communicate in advance. And if you have any emergency medications like this or like an inhaler, you should not only have it in your bag, you should also have it ready to handy. And that's the most important point, you should educate your partner how to use your medication. Because when you are tied up and need your inhaler, it will be very important that your partner knows how to handle it.
All right. What section are we on now? We're on anatomy, which is 18 minutes long. What? This is going to be the longest section by far. Because it's going to be a pretty long section. I'm gonna take a quick break. So BRB. All right, and I'm back. And now I have a glass of wine.
So So this has been a lot of content until now, and the next section will be very important because we will talk about nerves and nerve damage, and this is the highest risk when doing rope bondage. So to keep it simple and to be as precise as possible, I will take my notes with me because for me it's very important to be very precise on this topic. As already mentioned, the risk of getting injured by rope bondage is quite high in relation to other kinks. Some of these injuries aren't noteworthy from a medical point of view, but maybe from a personal point of view. These are hematomas, rope burn.
Crap. Sorry, was answering a few texts. So, should have, like, stayed on my BRB scene, but
Burn.
Anywho.
Rope marks. Petechia. And blister. As you lay with your body weight in ropes, you might get blue marks.
So, what is the best way to do this? Let's do a table. Okay, over here we have trivial injuries as opposed to serious injuries. And the name of this table. Is it possible to add a name to a table like this? Okay, cool. Concrete anatomical safety advices. Okay, what are trivial? Hematons. Guess I'm gonna have to Google search what this is. Oops. Oh, guess I spelled it wrong. Alright, just take a screenshot of this. This is what it looks like. Make this smaller. Okay. Rope burn, which I can imagine what it looks like. Rope marks. Pentachia. Is that something else I need to check my spelling on? Oh, okay. Yeah, that's definitely not something. I would put that as serious injury. This looks very not good. Okay. This. There we go. I'm back. Let's see, blisters. Okay, what is considered serious?
The risk increases with suspension and depends on your personal sensitivity. Rope burn can easily arise by pulling rope too fast over your skin. Rope marks usually disappear after a few hours and show the pressure marks where the rope has been on your body. Petechia are lots of small blue spots that look a little bit like freckles that arise often on your arm when there has been high tension on the ropes. Small capillary vessels burst due to the tension and create these small blue dots. Blisters can occur due to high pressure on your body and water gets pressed out of your cells. It's the same procedure like when you're getting blisters on your feet. Injuries that are more serious are foremost nerve damage and secondly, fainting. Getting a nerve damage through rope bondage is the most popular and most formidable injury. Mostly everyone doing rope bondage will experience sooner or later symptoms of a nerve damage or even get injured by a nerve damage. There is no way to fully purge the risk, but there are a lot of ways to decrease it. Most important tool to decrease the risk of a nerve damage is to be fully informed about how nerves work and what happens if a nerve gets damaged and how you can check the nerve status. As a person with a medical background, I will try to break things down to the basics because it is not my goal to train you as medical professionals. I will try to keep it simple and I beg other medical professionals listening to keep in mind that the goal is to give people without any medical background a rough understanding. Here you can see a picture of a nerve cell. A nerve is sending information from one point to another, e.g., from your brain to your hand muscles to be able to lift your hand, move it, shake it, and have muscle power.
BRB, while I text a friend, important point of this learning content.
The information can be sent to muscles or to sensitive ends. Sensitive ends enable us to feel touches, heat, cold, vibration, and pressure. The nerve is covered by myelin. You can see that in red here on our picture. And it works a little bit like the isolation covering a cable. The myelin guarantees a fast and entire forwarding of the signal. Our body is fully covered with nerves because they enable us to move, to feel, to have jerks. And therefore, it is impossible to tie someone without crossing through any nerves. They are everywhere in our body. And you can't see them and you can't touch them. You can only see them by magnetic resonance tomography and measure their function by electromyography. In bondage, we are usually affected by nerve damages in the arms, which is a huge problem for most people in their daily lives when their hands are handicapped. A nerve damage in our case is a damage caused by compression. That means that the nerve got compressed too long, too strong, and its myelin got damaged, as you can see here in the picture. A damaged myelin can't guarantee the fast and entire signal forwarding anymore. Depending on whether the injured nerve has been a motor or sensory one, you will have symptoms of asthenia, which means you have a decreased muscle power, or symptoms of sensory loss, like a numb skin. A pending nerve injury does not come along with painful symptoms. It can even come along without any symptoms. And the first symptoms you notice will be already a loss of motor or sensory skills. Your only possibility to decrease the risk is to know about potentially dangerous areas to tie on and to know about hand function tests. Let's start with getting to know potential dangerous areas. We will focus on the arm, although it might be possible to get a nerve damage in your legs or feet, but the potential risk is really lower than getting a nerve injury in your arms. Of course, this is not statistical data. There aren't studies about rope bondage and nerve injuries, but it's empirical data, and that says clearly that the risk getting a nerve damage in your leg or feet is a lot lower than getting it in your arms. I will draw the 3 most important nerves on the arm. This is a very rough drawing, of course, and only an attempt to visualize things for you. Of course, this is not the exact course of the nerves. They have more intersections, and nerves will move when we move the arm, but it helps you to get an idea about potential risk areas. There are 3 major nerves innervating the arm, so all have its source in the spine. I will mark them in different colors, so let's do green for radialis, blue for medianus, and black for ulnaris. They all have their source here in the spine, and they will move down the neck to the armpit. So their course is the same up to that point of the armpit. We can call this point the plexus brachialis. After that point, the nerves will have different courses. So, I said we take blue for medianus, and medianus has its course straight down the middle of the upper arm and the forearm. So you can remember medianus.
BRB for a second. Let me actually take this.
Middle. Straight down the middle of the arm. The black one for ulnaris. It has the same course here at the upper arm, but then at the forearm, it moves down at the side of the pinky, straight down. The radialis in green color has a quite more complicated course, so we will focus on that in detail. It has the same course here at the upper arm, but somewhere underneath the half of your upper arm, it will turn to the outside and then move down your forearm on the side of your thumb. So, if we turn you to the back, you can see that somewhere underneath the half of the upper arm, your radialis will turn out, move around your elbow, and then move down at the side of your thumb, down the forearm. So let's mark potential risk areas. One potential risk area is around the wrists. At this part of your arm, all three nerves run very superficial, so it is easy to harm them. You have to consider that when tying handcuffs. Another potential risk area is inside of your upper arm, because all three nerves run through that, and if you put the arm close to your body and rope will run through the body and the arm, there can be a pressure point by the rope which compresses the nerves at the inside of the upper arm. So this is also a potential risk area to keep in mind. The last potential risk area is here at your plexus brachialis, in your armpit. So that might be a potential risk area when you're tying chest harnesses, so everything that is arms free, and having neck ropes. Because when there's a neck rope under tension, it can create too much pressure on all three nerves running through your neck, down into your armpit, and can lead into a temporarily paralyzed arm. So your potential risk areas are armpit, the inner side of your upper.
Okay, you know what? This is important. So I'm gonna take a screenshot of this. Paste that here. And let me turn on my walk home. And maybe I need a better color. Let's do rainbow. So somewhere here, and just probably gonna mention the wrist.
Upper arm and your wrists. So another potential risk area might be the outside of your upper arm, especially when your arm is in a TK position. So we will turn the arm in a TK position. Some of the already marked potential risk areas are still visible, like the wrists. But at your upper arm, you won't see that much dangerous areas here on the outside. You can see the turn of the radialis to the outside of the arm somewhere here in the lower half of the upper arm, but it might also be here or there. It depends on your individual anatomy where it turns to the outside. So when you're tying a TK, what is a very advanced pattern, and that's why you should really train it, it might be that your lower wrap of the TK is tied above the radialis on that part or this part or even here. So as an advice, I would suggest to tie everything more or less in the upper half of your arm, so in that red marked area, to stay safe in case of nerve damage. In the lower half of your arm, somewhere your radialis turns to the outside. So this is another potential risk area, and you have to keep that in mind. If you start practicing on this part or even here. So as an advice, I would suggest to tie everything more or less in the upper half of your arm.
Wait a
so
second.
In tying a TK, what is a very advanced pattern, and that's why you should really train it, it might be that your lower wrap of the TK is tied above the radialis on that part.
Okay, ooh, actually, let me take a screenshot of this as well, and paste that somewhere here. And I think she does a cut here, a video segment cut, and it kind of cuts the audio out, and I don't think I got like what she was saying because the cut was done very interruptedly. So
part of this part or even here. So as an advice, I would suggest to tie every more or less in
like
the
right
upper
there.
half
Like,
of your arm.
I think she cut a very important part of this video. Like, what is? All right, so I'm gonna Rewind.
Or this part or even here. So as an advice, I would suggest to tie every more or less in the upper half of your arm.
I am going to interpret what she says and how she cut the video. That this right here is the area in which you would want to have the rope be tied to instead of somewhere in this area, is what I'm thinking. Like, that was a terrible cut. Here, let me delete this the screenshot and take a screenshot of this and paste it, and hopefully I interpret that right. So safe. That's what I'm gonna write. Okay.
So in that red marked area, to stay safe in case of nerve damage. In the lower half of your arm, somewhere your radialis turns to the outside. So this is another potential risk area, and you have to keep that in mind. If you start practicing, you will soon recognize that it is impossible to tie someone without tying on some of these risky areas. There is no need to keep them fully untied, but there is a need to tie with special attention to have flat rope, no torsions in the rope, no knots on potential pressure points, and good tension, so not too loose and not too tight. You can check the function of your hands by giving a thumbs up, by pressing your wrist backwards on the upper side of your forearm, by clenching fists, by open and close your hands, and by touching every finger with your thumb to check your sensitivity. Most important checks to the radial nerve are thumbs up and pressing your wrist backwards. If you aren't handicapped in doing that, your motor skills are perfectly fine. Please decide how often you want to do your hands check, and if you want to do it on your own or if you want to do it by request of your rigger. A sensory symptom of nerve damage can be tingling in single fingers, like for example, tingling in thumb and index finger is a signal for sensory loss of your radial nerve, but your motor skills can still be fine. Tingling in single fingers should always be communicated because it is for sure a nerve damage symptom. Tingling in your whole hand is mostly a symptom of blood stasis. This is a normal physical reaction, and the blood stasis is medically not noteworthy if you don't keep it for one whole day. Although it isn't alarming in a medical point of view, it might be a problem for you to do your hand checks. Because if your whole hand tingles, you can't notice when single finger starts to tingle. You can only check your motor skills. You have to answer for yourself and together with your partner how you want to deal with that situation when you can't check your hands for sensitivity loss anymore because your whole hand is tingling in case of a blood stasis. That is a very important question to discuss in advance. The most common nerve damage is the so-called falling hand, where your wrist can't bend backwards anymore. So this movement isn't possible anymore. You can't give thumbs up, you can't move your wrist backwards because your muscles don't get complete informations from your nerves anymore. The injured nerve is your radialis. It might be that you will be fully recovered after a few hours, but also days or weeks might be needed to recover. So this is a really serious injury. As a rule of thumb, the longer the compression has endured, the longer the nerve damage will endure. The sooner you recognize a problem, the sooner you relieve the compression, the sooner you will be recovered. That's why you should do your checks regularly during your tying scene and communicate promptly if you're recognizing any problem or are feeling insecure about the status of their nerves. If it happens anyway that you got a nerve damage, please don't feel guilty. And please avoid any form of further compression. So don't massage, don't tie as long as the injury is present. Please care for each other. Talk about the injury. Talk about how you feel with that damage. And please avoid randomly taking any medications like painkiller. There isn't any medication that helps the nerve to recover faster. And if you don't have pain, and usually you don't have pain when you have a nerve damage, it is not needed to take any painkiller. If you feel safer with that, visit your doctor and tell him honestly what happened. The doctor can check the degree of nerve damage by doing electromyography, or can send you to a physiotherapist to work on recovering your motor skills. And the last and most important advice is be patient. And that's the hardest but the best treatment to recover your nerve damage. Fainting can have many causes: too warm temperature, standing for a too long time, abrupt change from stand.
All right, take some notes on fainting. This is due to low blood sugar, too hot, standing too long, abrupt change of position, wrong breathing, nerve related, solar plexus, carotis sinus,
Standing to sitting or from sitting to standing, dehydration, hypoglycemia, wrong breathing, strong pain stimuli, or nerval stimulated fainting. If it's too hot, your blood sugar too low, you're dehydrated, or you're standing for too long, you will recognize feeling nauseous, getting cold sweat, maybe tingling in your ears before fainting. You will have enough time to communicate that you feel bad and want to get down to the floor as fast as possible. It helps if you try to stay focused on your breathing and try to breathe in through your nose slow but deep and breathe out strong through your compressed lips. As a rigger, be aware that during the process of bringing the tight person back to the floor, the person might faint. What goes along with a loss of muscle tension in the complete body, and you have to hold and navigate the body to the floor. It might be helpful to speak with each other. As a rigger, talk to your partner in a calm and constant way, telling your partner you will bring them down as fast as possible. You are there, you are caring, and nothing will happen. They are not alone. Nerval stimulated fainting works a little different. Mostly it is caused by the solar plexus. The solar plexus is a nerval structure located between your sternum and your belly. Strong pressure in this area can cause fainting due to nerval reactions that influence your blood pressure regulation. You will feel very fast, very nauseous, and you won't have time to communicate that you start fainting. You can also faint by compression of the carotis sinus, but as this nerval structure is located at your neck, and I would highly recommend to not play any neck rope before you are a routine rigger, I think it's not needed to explain all that in detail. But let me mention that fainting due to carotis sinus nerval reaction will happen in less than a few seconds. You won't be able to communicate anything before you faint. In the handling of these situations, it doesn't matter what the cause of fainting is. The first 8 measures are always the same. So the first 8 measures are: stay calm, stay focused, talk to your partner, and bring your partner down to the floor as fast as possible but without any panic. Lay them on the back, put the legs up on a chair to help their circulation to improve. If they are gagged or blindfolded, remove that immediately. Observe them. Usually the person should wake up after a few seconds. It might be that they feel a little disorientated or overwhelmed. Be there, be calm, talk to them, help them to get back their orientation. Untying is the last priority. Unless you have rope around the neck or around the face, then you should cut it immediately.
Okay, I think we're on the next video. What is the title of this video? This is Personal Risk Profile. I'm going to create another page for this. Personal Risk Profile.
section is about how to create and communicate a personal risk profile. The responsibility in rope bondage is always shared. Both participating partners have to be responsible for themselves and for their partner. Both are responsible to communicate their limits, status, and readiness to assume risk. It might be that for some people it might be worth a great session to condone a nerve damage. But for others, it might be their biggest fear to get a nerve damage. That's why it is so important to have a personal risk profile, but also to share it with your partner. I would recommend that the profile with a lower readiness to assume risk always should be the one that guides you. A chain is only as strong as its weakest link. So let me give you some questions for creating a personal risk profile. The first one will be, what is your level of experience in rigging, in modeling, in first aid, and in blood stasis and nerve damage?
Actually, I'm going to write all that down at the end of the video.
Are there any ties you don't want, you definitely want, you are feeling insecure about? Communicate about that. Do you want suspension? And if you want to do suspension, do you want to do static or dynamic poses? Do you want a time limitation for your time being suspended? As you have already learned, it is important if you want to check your hand function self-determined or by request of your rigger. You should communicate that in advance of your session. How frequently do you want your hands to get checked, or how frequently do you want to check your hands on your own? What and how do you want to communicate during the process of tying? Do you want constant feedback? Do you want to communicate verbal or non-verbal? Do you want to communicate after the session or only at specific times? How do you wish to deal with tingling hands? As you have already learned, when your hands are tingling, you can't check for sensitivity anymore. You can only check for your motor skills. So how do you want to deal with that? Do you have special anatomical needs like slipped discs, artificial joints, or implants? Communicate that in advance, because maybe you have to adapt your ties. As a model, is there any psychological trauma that might came up when you're tied? And if you're in subspace, is it still possible to monitor yourself and your hand functions? Think about that in advance.
Oh, can I go back?
Is there any psychological trauma that might came up when you're tied? And if you're in subspace, is it still possible to monitor yourself and your hand functions?
Okay. Level of experience. Rigging. Modeling. First aid. And lastly, blood stasis. Nerve damage. There we go. Secondly, we have, do you want suspension? Static or dynamic poses. Time limit for suspension. 3. What and how do you want to communicate during the tying process? Special anatomical needs. Are there any ties you don't want? You definitely want. You are feeling insecure about. 6. Checking hand functions. Self-determined by request of the rigger. frequently. How do you wish to deal with tingling hands? Then lastly, psychological trauma. Able to monitor your body while being in subspace. All right, let's move on.
Another very important, extensive, and heavily discussed topic is consent and consent violation, negotiation, and consent communication. So let's talk about that. Most consent violations do not happen because someone decided intentionally to harm somebody else, but because of misunderstanding and miscommunication. Therefore, a clear and concrete prior communication about boundaries is essential. Negotiation differs from consent in that consent asks partners for yes or no approval, while negotiation is the establishment of certain limits and safewords. Option in negotiation means that only the activities discussed and agreed to are part of a play. Option out negotiation means discussed and agreed and safewords. Option in negotiation.
This is kind of important. Option in negotiation
means that only the activity
activities discussed
and agreed
to
are part of
the
play. Option out.
Option out negotiation means
means that anything is fair game.
That anything is fair play except the hard limits or
activities deemed off limits. Consensual non-consent is typically a relation. Accept the hard limits or activities
off limits.
Activities deemed off limits. Consensual
non-consent means
non-consent is typically a relationship style. But some people do structure play within this type of.
Some people structure play.
But some people do structure play within this
type of structure.
This is where the person in authority makes a decision.
Person in authority makes the decisions
and the person giving
up the authority obeys. As even if they don't want to.
Even if they don't want to. It is advisable to establish expansive and deep.
It is advisable to define expansive and detailed consent.
Detailed consent negotiation before a scene, a session of interaction, starts between everyone involved. In this negotiation, we share things we consent to and what we would like our partners to consent to. A point someone doesn't want to consent to can be discussed, and often a middle ground can be found. It's not a coercion. It's not a tit-for-tat exchange. It's a mutual discovery of where everyone overlaps in their desires. And I want to give you some questions to think about your consent style. So, have you shared your risk profile and have you think about
items to discuss. Shared risk profile. Preferred communication style.
About your preferred style of communication. Reflect about your role. It's a common misbelief that the one who's tying is the active part and the one who's getting tied is a passive part. First and foremost, both partners do actively participate in a bondage scene. Nobody is passive in a sense of motionless condoning. The one who gets tied shapes the scene by their reactions, body tension, and movement. And sometimes the one who gets tied is proactively asking a rigger to do a specific tie or position on them. In such a situation, the one who gets tied is clearly not the one who is in a receiving role. But most people would assume the rigger as giving or taking, and the one who gets tied as the one who is allowing or receiving. These roles aren't connected to the tying roles firmly. To find out whether you feel better in a giving or receiving, allowing or taking role, and what that means in detail, I would recommend to check The Wheel of Consent by Betty Martin. Think about your preferred set. In detail, I would recommend to check The Wheel of Consent.
Look into The Wheel of Consent by Betty Martin. So I'll grab this, paste it here. Let's see what we got. Okay, boom, there we go. Sweet, we'll review that later.
Martin. Think about your preferred setting. Do you want to tie in a session mode or in a training mode, in public or in private? Do you want to use a safe
setting? Session, training, public, private. Safe word. Traffic lights code. Time limitation. Test time.
word or traffic light code. Do you want time limitation as how long do you want to be suspended, how long do you want to be in the tie, and do you want to have some kind of test tying like 3 minutes floor work with only one rope? Traffic light codes means that you have the colors green, yellow and red. If you're using green, you're all right with the situation. If you're using yellow, you came close to your personal limits, but you don't want the scene to stop. You just want to slow down the scene. If you're using red, you have crossed your personal boundaries or limits and you want the scene to stop immediately. How do you think about blindfolds, gags? Do you want any not rope related toys or activities? And what do you think about
blindfolds, gags, not rope related toys, nudity.
About nudity? How and where do or don't you want to get touched? Remember the questions from the self-reflection section about intimacy. And the last question is, Do you want to get dominated, or do you want to dominate?
Do I want to dominate, or do I want to get dominated?
Someone while tying. So this question might sound trivial for you, but as we have already mentioned in the self-reflection section, bondage and BDSM can be separated categories or belong together, and people have very different intentions what they are seeking for in rope bondage. So it's important to tell your partner if you want to be dominated or to dominate, if that is an activity that is linked to BDSM or not, for you personal.
Alright, how many more videos do I have? So there are 2 more videos. Okay, I think I can finish this tonight. But before I continue on, I'm gonna take a break because I'm getting tired. It's almost 2 a.m. So I'll be right back. BRB. back. Let's finish this. Alright, adding another page. Pain processing.
A very frequently asked question in rope bondage is whether you can know if something is bad or good pain. This sounds like a complicated question, but in the end it isn't that complicated. Your body is very much more independent from your ratio than you might think, and your body knows on its own what is good and what is bad pain. So I have drawn a little flowchart for you to show you how the different pain strategies in the body work. First of all, pain is always only an information. Your body wants to get aware of the sensation that is coming. But if that is a pain that sends an information that there is serious danger and a potential injury might come up, then your body will react knee-jerkingly. And there will be adrenaline sended, and you will feel panic, and your muscles will defense and will increase tension, and you immediately want to escape the situation. That kind of pain and pain processing is always a kind of bad pain. So in this situation, when you feel that kind of pain and getting panic, you should always change the tie immediately or untie and escape the situation. But if there is a pain information that makes you feel discomfort, or just itching and biting or pressing, then it's just an information to keep observing the situation. Your body wants to tell you you should observe the situation, you should observe the pain, but it's not a knee-jerkingly reaction that is needed, because this is only to make you aware there might be danger, potentially dangerous situation. So in this kind of pain situation, you can make a decision on your own, whether you want to stand that pain or not, and how long. Sometimes it is needed to tell your partner where it hurts and how it hurts and how long you can stand the pain or want to stand the pain. But it's a conscious decision you can take on your own. This kind of pain is what we can call good pain or potentially good pain. It depends on you whether this is good pain or not, but it is definitely not life-threatening or not a sign of a potential injury. So it is not bad pain at all. In this kind of pain situation, you can use breathing techniques to improve the situation. So you should breathe in slow and deep through your nose for 4 seconds, and then hold your breath for 7 seconds, and breathe out slow and deep for 8 seconds. If you repeat that 3 times, you will be astonished how relaxed and calm your body will become. And this can be a good strategy to deal with a pain you're not suited to. Another pain processing strategy is tongue relaxation. Your tongue and your mouth are connected to your whole body. If your tongue is tensed, your whole body is tensed. But
Panic. Panic. Muscle defense. Want to escape. Okay, so actually pick a different color. Change or untie. Oops. And how do we deal with this? With breathing techniques. So pain is a signal. It either is telling you that there is serious danger, or if there is some discomfort. And if there is discomfort, then you would need to continue observing what's happening. Or if you believe it's serious danger, then it is a potential injury. If that's the case, then what actions may result are panic, muscle defense, and a feeling that you want to escape. And the solution or the resolve on how to deal with this stem or this branch of pain is to change it up by communicating with your partner, or to simply untie, or probably to cut the rope. Over here we have so if we continue observing for something that is uncomfortable, then we come to a decision where we need to ask, do you or I want to stand the pain? And we need to set the limit. Exactly how much longer are you comfortable in this state? And sometimes to mitigate this discomfort is by using breathing techniques, which I know a few of, so I don't need to rewind.
But if you start relaxing your tongue actively, get relaxed. And the more relaxed you are, the easier it will be to stand the situation. So do not try to think too much about what is good or bad pain. Your body already knows about that. If you feel you can decide about whether it's good or bad pain, it will be potentially good pain because you have time to decide about that. But if you feel you need to escape very soon, it will be bad pain. Listen to your heart, listen to your body. Your body knows what is right for you.
Alright, we are on the last video of this basic safety course. Psychological aspects. And TRE. What does TRE stand for? We'll find out.
The last section of this course will be about psychological aspects and TRE, which means trauma tension release exercises. So being tied up and experiencing
okay. Trauma is tension. R is release. And E is exercise.
Experiencing a situation of being helpless and dependent on the other person might put you in a headspace where all the experiences of your biography or even trauma might come up. You can compare it a little bit with a headspace of being hypnotized. While being in that headspace, you can get easily entry to parts of your soul you haven't seen or recognized for a long time. That can be a very positive experience, but also a scary one. Experiencing injuries can also be a very scary one, and no matter how deep you have been informed on a theoretical base, you will anyway be frightened if your experience is practical. Therefore, the experience of an injury through bondage might be a traumatic or frightening experience for you. It is very helpful to have a tying partner with whom you can imagine to speak about those feelings and psychological flashbacks. You should ask yourself before you decide with whom you tie and what you want to tie, whether you can imagine to have that trust level and to talk about these topics, because then you can decide how deep you want to dive into the tying scene or how risky the stuff should be you will try out. You might experience shivering after you've been getting tied. That is a normal physical reaction and does not necessarily have to have something to do with being cold. It might have been a natural mechanism of stress relief we do also call tangent trauma release. Trauma does not necessarily have to be associated negatively. Trauma is any form of stressful impact that procures into freezing, fainting, or fighting. So, If your body experiences a stressful impact, you will start fighting, freezing, or fainting. In bondage context, it will be mostly fighting because your muscle tension will increase. Maybe at some point you will find acceptance and your tension relieves and you let go. But up to that point, it's just a natural process to react with higher muscle tension or freezing or fainting. After certain muscle groups got stressed and stretched, a phase of relaxation will follow. In that phase, the body starts to shiver because the deep psoas muscles get activated to shake the stress the body experienced out of the body. A lot of animals react in that way, and children naturally react like that. But adult humans are too much in control about their bodies to experience this natural mechanism of stress relief. You can discover the shiver experience also without getting tight by practicing trauma and release exercises. Tension and trauma release exercises is a simple yet innovative series of exercises that assist the body in releasing deep muscular patterns of stress, tension, and trauma. Created by Dr. David Bercelli, TRE safely activates a natural reflex mechanism of shaking or vibrating that releases muscular tension, calming down the nervous system. When this mechanism is activated in a safe and controlled environment, the body is encouraged to return back to a state of balance. You can search on the internet for some TRE exercises and try them out at home in a safe and controlled environment.
Yeah, I think that's it. But lastly, let me Google this topic up. Looks like a topic that is covered on the Oprah magazine. Oh, it's kind of funny. Shake it off naturally. The revolutionary trauma release process. Alright, it's getting kind of late, so let me switch to this scene and see if this button actually works. Let's see. Nice, it works. Alright, I want to thank everyone for viewing the stream. Let's see, what do we do here? So to summarize what we did in this session, let's see, we went over a full course on basic bondage safety measures. We covered the types of rope material between the natural versus synthetic types of ropes and how each one has, or each types of rope material have different types of properties. Some are very sensitive to water, and if you wash it, you would ruin the properties of that material, making it not suitable for use anymore. And there are other materials such as cotton that you could wash many times. Let's see. Well, I forget. There was one that was mentioned that would be ideal for suspension, but I don't think I wrote it down. Anyway, moving on, so we learned about the different cutting tools, how we're not supposed to use knives. We should either get some medical scissors or some textile scissors, which look the same, but both of which will get stumped very fast. So the recommended type of tool would either be a gut hook, a rescue cutter, or a belt cutter. We learned about self-reflection, and so many questions to ask yourself and also your partner in play. We learn about general safety advice, and basically we have a checklist of things that we should discuss before engaging into any play. We have we study about the anatomy of what trivial injuries look like, and also what serious injuries are and what they look like. We also went over personal risk profile, and like basically this is something that probably everyone needs to build a profile on, and when meeting new partners, it's probably important to exchange these profiles to learn about each other and to learn about your limits. That goes on to what we learned about next, which is consent and communication. We learned about these terms, or these were new terms to me, such as option in negotiation, which means there are activities which are discussed and agreed to that could be part of the play. And then we have option out negotiations, which means that anything is fair play, and specifically we define themes or activities that are off limits. And there's a couple other things or a couple other subsections of this topic that we learned about. And then we learned also about pain processing, to know whether if it's something is feeling like it's of imminent serious danger as opposed to just discomfort, and how to deal with each situation. And lastly, we learned about psychological aspects of the TRE system, which seems to be an entirely separate topic that could be learned on its own. So that's from a website. And yeah, I think that concludes everything that we've reviewed. So with that said, I want to thank you for watching, and I want to wish you guys a good night.